This is the draft.
The point of Stugan is to bring together game developers from all over the world and have them work on their games here for 7 weeks. We are in this beautiful, beautiful place, Dalarna in Sweden. We bring game developers and we put them in this environment, in this beautiful nature in the middle of the Swedish forest. We want Stugan to be this place for game developers where they can come and they can be just between each other and focus on their game and inspire each other. It just becomes a beautiful place and a beautiful nature with people networking and meeting and sharing ideas.
So Stugan is this experimental game development camp in the forests of Sweden where people come together from all over the world to work on the game for 2 months.
So Stugan is kind of like some sort of acceleration program for game developers.
And it looked absolutely kind of mind-blowingly incredible.
I just imagined like a month and a half just escaping from my life. I don't have to worry about anything.
In the middle of the woods for 2 months with 20 people.
All expenses paid and they just need to focus on the games. We bring in mentors.
I really wanted to see this place. It's here in Falun, in the center of Sweden. We are in the center of the forest. There is the lake.
We've got these beautiful wood cabins. Like, how could you not be inspired by coming here? I'm coming here to talk to people and to offer some mentoring, but I know that I'm going to come away feeling equally as inspired.
I think that most of the projects are really interesting, and some of them have a high potential to actually hit the big numbers on the market as well.
And it's a completely non-profit endeavor, just giving a place for developers to work together in a kind of an organic way.
I often say that Stugan is a philanthropic project because it's very much about giving back. The idea behind Stugan comes from Oscar Burman and Tommy Palm. They've both been, they've reached their pinnacle in their careers and they want to give back and help new talents and new people to get there as well. Oscar Burman, he has had quite long and impressive career in games. Tommy Palm, he's first of all my dear husband and he's also one of the founders of Stugan.
Stugan is Swedish words and it means cabin. A lot of Swedes have that reference to the summer times when they go out to that in the country house and just have a couple of weeks off. So we chose the name Stugan because Stugan was the first commercial video game in Sweden. It was made in 1977. It was actually my college professor who was part of the team. I've been in the industry for a long time, making video games since childhood. One of my dreams and the drive was I wanted to have this opportunity to walk into a bus or a subway and see somebody playing a game that I worked on. And that took a really long time. I think it was in 2013 in Taiwan when I finally randomly walked in. Somebody was playing a game that I've been working on. That was Candy Crush. So in 2012 I sold a company to King, and we had the same vision. So the first game we started working on together was Candy Crush, and the goal was to reach 1 million active daily users. That's something that we were measuring by, and that was basically unheard of. So it felt like a really stretch goal. And then once we released the game, it just started skyrocketing, and more and more people started playing it, and we were constantly saying that it can't continue like this. It's gonna stop and plateau out at some point, and of course it did, but it became basically the biggest game in the history of mankind. So it was fantastic to play a small part in that.
So meeting Tommy and meeting the mentors has been absolutely fantastic. Having all these people from all over the world, getting all these people into one place, all with these different amazing stories as to how they became game developers and how they got there. It's incredibly exciting and inspiring.
It's also sort of strange because you've never met each other before. You're in this very special place. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but you're in this kind of bubble. So you don't know anything about each other's past, and then you just start to get knowing each other very intensively.
Okay, so you have a lot of nerds in a cabin.
So you really get to know people because you have to eat with them 3 times a day. You maybe sleep next to a lot of them. I mean, you basically sleep next to each other.
Stugan is also a lot of fish and boiled potatoes.
And Swedish bread, which isn't actually bread. I'm pretty sure they mine it from the rocks out back.
Do you remember when I was so convinced that they were giving us stale bread? Because it's so hard.
Yeah, so that's what Stugan is, dear viewer. Stale bread and video games, the dream.
This year we have 15 teams. They come from 16 different countries, and in total that is 25 people.
If there's more voices, you get more different and better results, right? You won't get only the same thing all over again.
I'm Kubra.
And I am Yunus.
We are Game Brain team. We are from Ankara, Turkey.
I grew up in Poland.
I'm from New Zealand.
Mexico City. I'm from Denmark.
Brazil! And there's that British guy.
Yeah.
Hi, mate. How are you doing, mate?
So my name is Henry Hoffman. I'm an independent video game designer, and I'm from London. Well, I grew up in Suffolk, but I've been based in London for the last 6 years. So I put together a pitch video for a game idea, which was called Split Screen. And the idea is that there was these 4 sort of different worlds that kind of overlay each other. And the idea was that you kind of subvert the idea of the traditional split screen game. It's always about exploring ideas that haven't been explored, so it's about creating new experiences.
So our game is called Semblance, and it's what we like to call a Play-Doh platformer, because the world itself is made out of Play-Doh, which means you can sort of deform and shape the environment itself.
I guess you could say it changes the world.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
I'm making an RPG that's where you play the game master and not the characters. Rather than you trying to kill the characters or like destroy things. Like really classic RPG, like mobile, like the game and the tropes and inverting it a little bit. Yeah, I hope to have it out on mobiles eventually, like Android and iOS.
People who want to be a part of Stugan, they need to send us an application video, a 90-second long pitch where they need to present the team and the game.
So making the pitch video was, for me, first of all, I understood the purpose. They wanted to see me as a character, but I didn't, with the pitch video, didn't take it very seriously, and I think that's why it worked.
I reshot it like dozens and dozens of times, trying to get it just right.
I submitted the application like at 11:59 at the very last second, because I just kept tweaking it for ages. So.
The video is a gift from me to them, saying, hey, I give you this piece of me that I recorded in time, and I hope that you will take me in for my personality and my whatever. I'm gonna look like an asshole.
The application process, we look at diversity as an important thing, and try to make sure that the games that come here are not only like traditional video games, but also a little bit more daring and going in different areas.
There's such a wide range of games here. It's not just like games that, you know, the average gamer would look at and say that it's like instantly super marketable.
They've set up Stugan as a creative project. They do not put any pressure on the people who are here to be commercially successful. I don't even think that they select us in terms of our economic potential. I've never seen anything like that here.
There are also alternative games and art games and, you know, things that should exist.
As Stugan is a diverse group, I think we have a little bit of everything. And some of the people here are very, I don't know how their mind works. The universes that they create are just fantastic to see. Game development for me is just such a source of inspiration and passion.
Video game file like is an executable, and back in the day it was really easy to look into the files. All these alien characters make my soldier go right and left and shoot the paratroopers from the sky. I was like, wow, I want to make these one day.
I built this computer myself. I like building computers, it's fun. It's always a lot of work, so precise. You always get all sweaty because it's like surgery. This is basically a giant calculator that can calculate what color is like 2 million of pixels on your screen are gonna be 60 times per second. This is all this can do.
My name is Sosowski. I program the games, I do the graphics, I make the sounds, and I make music for my video games. I also do all the around the game stuff, so you have to have a marketing department, that's me. You need to have a PR department, that's me, so it's just me writing emails. You need to have a business department, so that's me reading contracts. And you also have to be present on different conferences and places like this here in Stugan. Indie game developers are not like big corporations.
Smaller games from fewer people, which usually resonates a single feature that's exploited.
In indie game community, we come together a lot. We support each other, we interact with each other, we are just like one big family.
Today it was actually my round to play the Mosh Pit Simulator by Source. He never let anyone play it, but today was the day where everybody could put himself in a list, and then everybody got a slot.
Every week they would ask me if they could play my game, and I would say next week. And that never happened, so it's happening today. I gotta save my lab rats. We can play live music. So now we're gonna play some MORE Simulator. Someone today compared video games to Wagner, who thought that opera is like the epitome of presentation of a topic with all the like supernaturality, with the actors and the words and the music and the performance. So it's all of these things, and so that makes me think that video games are the opera of the modern times, where you have sound, you have visuals, you have interaction, and you have emotions as well. Just like in poetry, you can evoke emotions with video game, and it's a tool like no other that can do this. Yeah, for that over.
So video game as art, I think definitely is culture. Art, depending on the game, definitely. I mean, you see a lot of indie studios doing a bit more experimental, more art type of game. When I was a kid, I watched my brothers and my dad play a lot of video games. Day of the Tentacle was one of these games, and something captured me about this game. I guess it was the art, the story, the very wacky characters, the tentacles, you know, just stuff being a bit weird has always appealed to me, and Day of the Tentacle definitely has that.
Okay, human, do your business.
Is video games art? Of course they are, there's no question, they're like expression.
This is hard. What is art? Is really the first question.
From the developer point of view, it's like expressing yourself. And if you think of the players, I think you can go to 10 different people and they will give you 10 different answers, like why they play games. But eventually it's about like jumping from this world to some other reality and experiencing that.
I think games are as much an art form as any other form of media. It might not be taken as seriously yet, but I think it's starting to be noticed by the general populace. There are more and more traditional venues that are picking up on it, such as, you know, museums are putting on exhibits, and there are more and more festivals which the public attend, and I think that we will see in the years to come that it will develop into itself as like a fully recognised artistic medium.
For me, it's like the most exciting art form at the moment, really, even though there's so much stuff that's actually just commercial.
Well, games, compared to any other medium, allow you to interact with the world, right? So finding ways that you interact with the world that have never been done before, that just like super excites me. the way that you can completely change your environment, or you can do things that you can't do in any other medium. I think that's awesome.
There is no question games are definitely art. Art to me is something that's like a product of an artist's soul, and it's this really unique mix of the things you like, the things you love, like the music, art, like literature. How can it not be art if it's from all of that, you know? And it's every game, even if it has the same core idea, has come out in a different way, and that's exactly how art is like. I mean, you're going to paint a landscape, and it's the same landscape. There are 12 people like painting the same landscape, but every single one of them will be different.
Games have always been this medium of fun and play. Like that's what it's like. Board games have been around for centuries, like millennia. There's a board game from Egypt that's so old that no one has the rules for it. They don't know how to play it. That's how old it is, and everyone just makes up rules. And it's because people use it as a pastime. Like when something's so accessible like that, and you come from a high culture, almost elitist background of what fine art and art is, it becomes hard for you to think something that accessible can be good art.
This was a question that was really important to me before I actually became a game designer. Prior to this, the idea of games being art was like this central, like it would legitimize games. If everybody knew that games were art and that games were expressive, then they would take them seriously and see their important cultural value. But now, I mean, I definitely see that as a fallacy, like to talk about it in the first place. I mean, these conversations and discussions are definitely important, but for me personally, yes, games are expressive. Yes, if you want to sit down and write a definition of art, I do think games are art, but I also kind of think everything is art. Yeah.
Actually, we don't create just shitty games, not just for money. We create art, actually.
Yeah, both create art and earn money, you know. We are the middle of the concept.
If games are art, I think we can talk about it, we can argue about it, but I think most people are eventually is going to agree. But the actual change of definition is what is an artist?
She might kill me, but I really think Karina's game is quite arty. It's a photo essay.
It's very different from what everybody else does. Nobody takes pictures for their game.
I really liked Karina's game. It's perfect.
My game uses photographs to tell its story. I'm still having a hard time describing it because there aren't a lot of reference points for it. It uses photographs in a sort of semi-stop motion-y way, just performing sort of mundane actions like riding the subway, typing on your computer, pouring a cup of juice in the morning. Each action lasts 10 seconds long, and then the game automatically moves on to the next action. And it goes through all of these actions over and over again in the course of a day. Like you play through a day, and then another day starts, and then another day starts, and then another day starts. I worried that having choices and having paths and a branching narrative would overcomplicate it and turn the experience into something more goal-oriented, and I didn't want that.
I was having a problem because it was trying to pull up an image that didn't exist, because like I had one number off. And so I kind of just had to sit here and put in a bunch of console logs, which are like the little messages that'll pop up on that little white part, just to try to figure out at what point the function was screwing up. And it turned out that like I had a number that was like a 2 and it needed to be a 1, and that fixed it. I actually can show you something. I developed, I just programmed. I didn't like design or anything. I made a couple of games for Sesame Street. And I don't even know if this was allowed, but I did it anyway. It's in the code. Basically, there's a little commented out code. It won't run or anything, but it has my name, K-pop, which nobody is ever going to see and no one is going to know is there. It doesn't like run or do anything. I don't know, I wanted it to be there so that it was kind of humanizing the thing that I had made. I mean, otherwise it's kind of like these things just sort of spring into existence. I loved it. I loved Sesame Street. Getting to work for them was so exciting. It was so cool. Yeah. Yes, I watched Sesame Street a lot.
My path to becoming a developer began when I was an undergraduate student. I studied English Lit, but I was more interested in studying games, and I wrote academically about games, and I sort of used that as a sneaky way to get into graduate school to study game design explicitly.
So I was 9 years old, and my dad bought me a copy of a magazine called Planet PC, and it's a magazine that's specifically targeted towards kids. And it came with a copy of Click and Play, which is like an old school original drag and drop game creation tool. And then between the ages of 9 to 12, I'd made over 100 2D games just in my spare time.
My first experience of a computer game was actually Space Invaders, and it was during the war in Bosnia. So a friend of mine, whose father lived at the time in Germany, somehow brought it back to Sarajevo. I don't know how, because Sarajevo was under siege. There was no electricity or running water most of the time, so we would wait for electricity to come on. And I remember my mother would hurry to the kitchen to cook something, but we would hurry to the TV to play Space Invaders.
I think my experience was quite similar to that. I don't remember how, but maybe somebody from my building got the Commodore 64 in the war. But the Commodore was you had the cassettes that you put inside. Yeah.
I started programming when I was very little, so I think around 97 when I made little small text-based games. Before that I made board games for my brother because we didn't have money to buy real games, so I made board games. But then when I started school, I met Ivan and he was doing this awesome 3D art, and I just told him, oh, we should make a 3D game. That's all the rage now. It's Quake 3 is in, we're gonna make the best 3D game. And he had this small dinosaur he made, and we put a dinosaur in a room. So I programmed the dinosaur to walk around and he could jump. But
jump infinitely?
Yeah. That was my first bug I made in a game. The dinosaur, if you hold the space bar, he would jump infinitely and hit the ceiling.
Oh, my very first game, it was called The Incredible Unicorn versus the Third Reich. it's you play this unicorn, it shoots lasers out of his unicorn thing, and you fight Nazis. There was this new program which came out, which is called Stencil, where you can basically just click your game together, and that's basically how I got started in it. That's when I figured out how to make games, and then I just started making games slowly.
I did my thesis at Frostbite, so I saw like the insides of a big gaming company. Went to another company and did a lot of 3D related things and user experience. I like graphics, I like user experience, I like programming a lot, and the thing it has in common is games.
Okay, I've been working with animation in 2D and 3D. I've been working with music, sound, and art, graffiti on walls and whatever. I would sit with my dad's computer in a music software and I would try to make music, and I would be like, this sounds terrible. I wanted to sound like these great guys I listen to. Having that sort of spark, having that sort of, what do you say?
having a wish to achieve this greatness has always been what's pulling me.
When I started making games, I wasn't aware that it was a career choice. And I dropped out of school. My parents weren't super happy about that. I was studying computer science. And of course, everybody had expected me to finish that, but I just felt it was such a great opportunity to get started. And I felt that these mobile phone things would be such an excellent gaming platform. That took quite some time, but eventually it got there. So with a bit of luck and perseverance, I think it's very important in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so entrepreneurship has always been kind of, it always felt natural to me, I guess. And that's because my family have been entrepreneurs for basically like generations. My grandfather started like 7 different businesses, and it was always just about finding the right thing to do. When I left university, it was still like, you know, kind of obvious or natural for me to say, hey, I want to start my own game studio, I want to start my own company.
I've grown up in Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, Kampala, Gaborone. I was also in like a small town called Grahamstown, and then finally in Joburg. You gotta hustle, you gotta make a plan somehow. Like in Kenya, we have this like industry called Jua Kali. So Jua Kali directly translated means hot sun. So the way I look at it is like these guys out in the sun, like making furniture. So like people would go into stores, right? They would get a brochure like, you see this couch? They go to the guy on the street, it's like, yeah, I can make that. I can make that. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So for me, it's not like I can't get there. It's like, okay, that's the goal. I don't know how exactly, but like,
we'll do it.
One step at a time, you'll figure it out, right?
Wow, we're the professional.
I think with media, there's this primal thing. Like we can sort of have a glimpse of how it feels to be in the shoes of someone else. Games can sort of bring you even closer, like even dangerously close to the events that are happening in this sort of virtual world.
Talking about addictive games, I think the way you can design your game to take time is by constantly poking the player with new things he has to do, or poking the player with things he can get.
A lot of mobile RPG games sort of abuse that like dopamine cycle that you get from like leveling up and like getting more stuff and leveling up and getting more stuff.
If you can keep on driving the person to go out and get stuff and earn stuff, no matter what that stuff is, you'll get him hooked.
So you have stories about people who become engrossed. I think WoW is one of the early games that people dedicated a majority, if not all, of their time into these this game and this experience, this one universe?
The real true addiction I've ever had in my life was addiction to World of Warcraft. It didn't last too long, maybe a couple of months or more, but I was playing for 13 hours a day and I just couldn't let it go. You know, I was all the time, it's like my whole life just shifted towards playing Warcraft, and it's so stupid, you know. I'm just grinding forever to get some gold, to kill some infinitely coming monsters with no purpose.
I think World of Warcraft is a game that is designed a lot to take your time, because you keep on getting new items, you keep on leveling up, you keep on getting, oh, I can have a new skill if I just play for a week more, I'll have this item, I'll have this skill, or I'll be able to join this clan. And there will be all these things tying you to keep on playing the game.
I was obsessed with an online game called RuneScape at the time, and we had dial-up, pay-as-you-go internet. And I spent all night on that game, and I was just racking up the phone bill without even realizing. And then my parents got a £700 phone bill, and they were like, right, that's it, we're cutting off the internet. You're like, there's too much of a liability, you're not allowed to use the internet.
If you're a bigger studio, like, you kind of need to maybe lean on these sort of exploitative design tactics, like, you know, because you have a big company to take care of and you really need to keep those numbers up, and you need to rely on these things. But I think as smaller companies and independents, you can sort of maybe say a little bit more than sort of these other bigger companies can. And yeah, it'd be good if developers feel like they have something positive to say. I do feel a responsibility that I should make something that pushes the medium like forward rather than sort of take a step in the wrong direction.
I feel more empowered when I can stimulate people's emotions and not just their dopamine.
We wanted to talk about slavery
in
Brazil.
Slavery in Brazil.
The legend of Dandara, as far as I understand, and most people believe, is that she was like a queen in Africa and she was brought to Brazil to be a slave, but somehow like she got free. She went to this Quilombo, which is like Quilombo dos Palmares.
She was a leadership figure that helped all the runaway slaves.
The Quilombo was like a huge group of slaves that got free, and they fought to keep their freedom and to help freeing other slaves.
We came and decided, man, we are just two guys. We need to focus on making the game good.
Yeah.
Focus on making.
It's like our
level
second
design.
game.
Yeah, our second game.
Yes. So we wanted like to make a game that was more about the mechanics.
So everything we should do, we should cut in the game. Like every content should put in the game should go to that experience to improve that.
I'm Victor Leon, and I'm the artist and animator working on Dandara right now. I joined the project like 2 years after they started working on it. I saw the project from the beginning, and I gave some feedback on the art style, but it's not what I'm really used to. I'm used to really fast and really snappy Japanese animation. So for Dandara it was hard to adapt to the art style because she's a really gracious character. The way she moves and the way she enters the doors, those movements, they sort of look like zero gravity gymnastics. Sometimes she moves so fast when you're jumping around and zigzagging your way through the map that you can actually use some of those really snappy animations, and that's the part that I like to animate.
You are playing in a dreamy world. You don't know what is real and what isn't. When I compose music for Dandara, I usually start on not the note itself, but the texture and timbre. This relates of what the game is. I think Brazil music is all about chill.
When we are working together, sometimes Thomas asks for like, I don't know how this stage looks like. I need images so I can have them in my mind so I can start composing something. The guy started making Dandara for mobile devices, and then Raw Fury stepped in and said, hey, why don't you try this in the controller? And suddenly the controller is the Switch controller.
We don't want like the first Brazilian game announced on the Switch to be like crap. Back when I was a kid, I was playing Street Fighter. It was like, man, I want to make Street Fighter and launch games on Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for, and it's finally happening. I mean,
it feels amazing to be on the Nintendo Switch and to reach out to everybody.
My name is Per. I'm working in the resort, so heading the resort up. People come here because we have a beautiful and clean environment, and then it's our task also to really try to use what we have as much as possible. So then we thought, rather than demolishing this old shed, we'll give it another 5 years perhaps. And then probably we've done something good not to use new when not needing to. This color is actually from the region. It's called Falu Red, and we're 20 kilometers from Falun, which I think is Europe's largest copper mine. So they used the sort of waste sediment, and this has sort of developed into becoming the typical Swedish red color. I would say that in 75% of Sweden, this is the dominating both paint and color. As a child, I also stood like this, painting, as the kids do now, more or less every summer. The older you grew, the more you got to be responsible for actually painting it. I got to do more and more, and I got to paint higher and higher. So it became just a natural way to help out, actually. Our 3 children started playing games on our initiative, really young, to learn both to read and count and things like that. I think it's an important part of every family's life now, actually. I never, when growing up, thought I would pick on my children to start watching TV. But just an hour ago, put the iPad away and watch the morning show.
Well, my name is Mario Carballo. I'm from Mexico City. My game is about folding clothes, mainly it's a traveling simulator. The idea is I want to tell a story about a guy who just started a new job and he has to travel all this place in the world. I started doing this when I started traveling more, and one of the things that I wanted to try is to be as efficient as possible in my suitcase, because I only wanted to take one. One of the ideas I had was like, I want to do this game about folding clothes, and maybe the most clear way of following those instructions is like a label on your t-shirt. My father was a reporter, and then he became a novelist, and my mother is more like an editor. So, I mean, it was really good because I learned how to read with them. I mean, they were always recommending me books, so I got in love with books really early in my life. I think there are similarities between like any artistic process, so they understand that, but it's different, like how to explain what a game is, why a game is interesting for me. What I think a rhythm game is, at least, is like this concept of putting sound synchronized with gameplay. So you have this music in the background or this rhythm, and you have to match the gameplay with that. It's funny because everybody that has tried my game always came up with other rhythm games that I don't know. I have started playing a lot more, but like at the very beginning of the development of the game, I like to approach it like a new idea.
So my name is Anders Nord. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm working on a game called The Lost Light of Sisu. And it's about a little creature crash landing on an alien planet trying to find its way home. So in the beginning, the prototypes were like very Super Meat Boy-ish. So it was very, very harsh game. Maybe you could say like you died easily, you could shoot and stuff like that. And now it's a very, very friendly game where you never die. And I really don't want the player to get agitated or frustrated by the game. I want you to always like feel happy and afterwards just have a nice feeling inside of you.
Games have changed in purpose over the years. Now that they're kind of growing up a little bit, we've kind of gone through our awkward puberty stage of offensive shooters and pure titillation, and now that the gaming world is kind of developing more into an art form, I think that games are used for a lot more purposes and a lot more expressions as well. So you have games like Animal Crossing where you don't play it for a thrill, but you play it to sort of relax and have a zen experience.
With meditative games, I very much value the idea that you don't have to rush when you're playing it, that you can just take your time. I think we have an intrinsic set of things that we like exploring or that we like experiencing through all kinds of art form. I guess for a long time, games felt like they were always about beating your high score or doing something better than somebody else. And I guess the emergence of slow games just shows that there are different things that you can do with the medium now, and I think it's a sign of the medium maturing. My name is Manish Mistry. I work for Us2 Games in London, and we made Monument Valley, Land's End, and just recently Monument Valley 2. Monument Valley is a game that we made in 2014 on touch devices like iPad and iPhone and Android. It's a game about impossibility and architecture and beauty. It's really important for us to basically have no fail state ever in this game. It's something that we really like, and it's great to see people also enjoying that kind of game. When the game did have the reception that it did, it was just an amazing feeling. It was a kind of like, everything's different now.
Renee, did you just complete the Rubik Cube?
I did, yeah. I do it quite often actually. It's mine, I brought this here, so I learned it a few years ago. When you want to solve a Rubik's Cube, you have to know how to do it. If you just start rotating the pieces, then you won't get to the solution. You can't move every cube on the cube. It's like there are rules, like the green is always on the opposite of yellow, right? The middle things define what color there is because they cannot be moved, right? So some stuff is basically memorizing algorithms. So at this point, it's mostly muscle memory. I don't know the algorithms out of my head. I can't say it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think it would be a 3 or 4 to learn how to solve Rubik's Cube. It's actually quite easy. It's just it takes time. Coding on a 1 to 10 would maybe the same. It's not that hard to learn. And that's it.
Cool, man.
Good.
question of what a good game actually is like asking what is good art. You know, there's not one answer to it. I would say as much as it goes, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Like, we've been playing since we evolved into humans, and it's always going to be a part of our psyche and who we are. And I think everyone has a game for them, or, you know, is a gamer at heart somewhat.
It's up to who's ever viewing, and in this case also interacting with the art. And I think the question could be put like, why don't you fall in love with every person you meet, right? It's because you need to create some kind of a connection to that person. And it's the same with a piece of art. You're looking for that connection. It could be called magic. I always think of it as soul. Does the game has a soul that, you know, resonates with, I guess, my soul? And it's different for everyone.
What makes a good game is completely dependent on the design vision. If the design vision is to create an experience which is thrilling, then the game needs to be thrilling. And I think it's really difficult to say overall what makes a good game.
It's going to come down to the players that actually pick up your game. Do they get that connection with the game, and does that resonate, and does it stay with them, and will they come back?
I think the games that have caught me the most and have influenced me the most have been games where you can feel that the art comes before the technical stuff, meaning that it's not a, hey, let's do a shooter. I know how to make a shooter. I tried this thing. But it's more like, hey, let's make a game about this character's journey. And I think it's hard to maybe categorize because those games can be everywhere, but I think that games that has a starting point that's more of a story, of a artistic vision, will always be the games that will influence me and inspire me.
You can make a male voice and a female voice, let's see now.
And just like babbling, not saying anything in particular?
No, yeah, just like babbling. Just like
So-
ba ba boo, boo.
Okay.
And then we can cut each ba or each boo, and we can make it like a random. So when they speak, it's gonna sound cool. Maybe like that.
Okay. Yeah, this is my first game jam. You're supposed to make a game in 48 or 72 hours. So, and like you start from the scratch, you get a theme, you think about the theme, you try to come up with an idea. And in our game we have this ostrich god. It's basically a ripoff of it's a ripoff of Small Gods, the book of Terry Pratchett. And so this ostrich god is losing power because he doesn't have followers. So he's trying to gain new followers, and you play the ostrich and you talk to people. You are supposed to interrupt their speech at certain moments to kind of, to stop them from having doubts.
So we gotta interrupt really in the right place when they speak slowly like this, but not make any sense now. Just there's nothing making. This doesn't make any sense.
But it will.
It will.
I found a video on YouTube of two guys talking about which sounds ostriches make, and one was explaining to the other that they make woo sound, and I guess Joao wants the sound, some funny sound. But I mean, I'm sure voice actors, they have like some tricks to,
Yeah, they do. You should
loosen the
get
muscles.
them from the diaphragm and like be really sitting in a comfortable position for your air to come out from your lungs and things like that.
Are you okay? Do you need help? Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 Maybe I can make a horse sound like a.
What's the deadline, and is there a prize?
I actually don't know. Sure. Is there a prize?
There's a deadline for tomorrow.
Yes, but the prize?
There's no prize. There's just like street cred.
There's what?
Street cred.
If you're coming from an artist point of view and you want to get into games, but you think that you won't ever be able to do it because you don't have the mind for it, or because you never have math in school and you didn't like trigonometry, I think you can still make games, and that's what I've experienced.
Game development is very democratic, and everybody who likes playing games can make a game. And especially nowadays, there is so many tools that are available for free, and that make it much, much easier to make a game.
Well, I think the most easy explanation of what Unity is it's like Photoshop for doing games. Like you have this UI where you put things together and you can export it to multiple platforms.
Actually, it was only my last game, Hue, where I learned how to program for reals. Before I was using like drag and drop tools, because I come from a kind of a design and art background. I would do anything I could to make the game that doesn't involve programming for the longest time.
So the programming I taught myself, it's not real programming, I think. It's just very game related what I know. So it's mostly YouTube tutorials or just text tutorials on the internet. I just read it and just tried to apply what they're saying, and over time I just kept learning.
Coming from this idea and translating it myself to the game, and gives you so much power.
Programming is such a fantastic thing. It's an extremely creative. You start coding something and it's like writing can be, just starts to live its own life. And so learning to code is a way that you can have a deep impact on the world.
To me, it feels like a global language, like math, a little bit. Like math is a global language. Everybody that learned a little bit about it can talk math. And well, to me it's like that, because everybody of here that can code, we can talk in equal terms, even if our language barriers are too much, right?
The beauty of code is that you can have something in your head and in your mind, and then you can express it and actually make it happen. For a very basic and simple shader that just outputs the color of, like let's say we have this sphere that we want to make, we just want it to be red, right? So a very simple program would be that you have first the vertex shader, and then so you have the position of the vertex. Then you would use the input and multiply it with the model view projection matrix and get the position, and then in the fragment shader you would just set it to be, the RGBA values would just be 1, right? And then you return a vector like that. The art would be writing code that other people can understand easily, and that is, I think that's the main thing. So what I have here is this little character, and the animations are procedurally generated with the shaders. So this is the node graph, and you can already see that it becomes a bit more complex. And sometimes I think about if it's the best choice, choosing to sit in front of a computer all day, maybe you should just go and be like a fire watch guy or something, working in a national park, befriend some bears, have a good time.
The thing about indie development in particular is that you don't have like your fixed timetable where you fix pay. That means that maybe someday you are like, yeah, today I can do more, and you work 12 hours.
It definitely feels like work. Sometimes, especially in the beginning when you start working on something, you're still really excited about your idea because it's somewhere in your mind, it's this perfect thing you have. But as soon as you start working on it, you notice that it's not as perfect. You just need to come up with solutions to problems, and at some point it absolutely turns into work. It's hard work, it is. When you actually have a job, you have like this fixed time. You start then, you end then you go home and you're done with it. But now it's more like it's always in the back of your head, and when you feel like you don't work enough, it also makes you crazy because you just push yourself into a very bad place.
And a lot of the times for me when I'm stressed or like I'm like in like any high emotional state, I just work.
When you start working 12 hours a day for months and maybe for years, it comes out in a moment that your body says stop. It's not cool that in the game industry it's so common to see people overworking that much, crunching, but it's
Crunching,
yeah,
yeah.
crunching. It has even a name.
You're not just the environmental artist, or you're not just the gameplay programmer for this feature. You're doing everything, and you're picking up the pieces, and you're learning brand new things that you've never done before.
I definitely have underestimated the workload that goes into the gameplay and actually making the game fun.
You can be the best game developer ever, and because of a technical bug in a tool you're using, 4 years into the production you realize that your game just doesn't work.
I've never tried anything as heavy and as complicated and as time-consuming as game development. It is by far the biggest mountain to climb, I think.
Indie developers are vulnerable. They are usually isolated, they are often not well paid or paid at all. They are mentally struggling because developing games is very, very hard and complicated.
The process of game development is a very hard and individual one. So it means something else for everyone. But for a lot of people, it's really they're really passionate about what they're doing. So it can be very consuming, and you need to kind of be careful that you don't get consumed. So you have like a balance in your life.
Oh man, it's late. It's 12:28. It's past midnight. But I feel really awake. Yeah, I like to work in the night. Like I've lost a few people within the few years, and that's a thing that keeps making me sad. Losing family, and it's something that doesn't really leave. I think it's not. I'm not trapped, and it's not necessarily a problem. It's not a disturbance, but it's like it's sad to lose a parent. It's sad to lose a grandparent, and yeah, it definitely sucks you a little bit. What I do right now has to align with what I want for the future. So if I'm sitting around all day, I'll get really mad at myself actually, and I think it makes me. Sometimes it's a little too much actually that I can't. If I wake up 2 hours too late in the morning, I hate myself because I'm like, you wasted 2 hours. You could have worked. You could have been more ready. You could have been more prepared for the day. So there's this. I think as being this sort of individual creator, that most of his time he actually chooses when he wants to wake up in the morning. Being this kind of person that can just wake up whenever you want, it's like you easily start to hate yourself because you define your routine, you define your day, and if the day has become sloppy, or if you haven't done any proper work, you'll feel like you're the idiot. It's not your boss, it's not your job that's the fault, it's you. So it's interesting, but it's also tough. No, I've had very few jobs, very few real jobs. I would never imagine starting to work, in McDonald's after doing this. I don't think that would ever make sense.
Has chronic depression, and I myself found that I was sad for long periods of time. I wanted to do something about it, and I really liked consuming media or find that documentary or that piece of culture that proved to me that I was not the only one going through this, that it was not some kind of secret I had to keep. We wanted to have kind of a metaphorical game. To have that, you need some sort of background and some stuff to work on. If I have some broad concepts that I can conceptualize, then we can work on top of that and maybe give some sort of signal to the player. So Idearum is a game about a soul that's lost and tries to find its way.
It's a soul. It has been born in nothingness. Mythology, it's just important stuff in general. They are archetypal stories, right? They hold certain meaning, and there are characters in the stories that keep repeating, and you can relate to them because it's something that's kind of everybody has it in their subconscious, and every culture, no matter which culture, has similar stories.
So what will explain me in simple words is that I like to create, and I'm not married to anything. I've been through so many different creative processes. I've been trying them all, I've been tasting them all. So my game is called The Forest Quartet, and it's about a spirit trying to get an old band back together. And what you do half of the game is that you explore this rich forest, kind of deep forest, and the other half is where you solve puzzles. It's a little bit of a spiritual game without trying to change everyone's existence, but I think I want to believe that I'll always be sort of here. And that doesn't mean I have to be here, but it means that I'll always be. And there's something about that, and then having a spirit body that connects. Yeah, it's really abstract. I don't want to talk too much about this stuff. Yeah.
My father died quite early, so it was just my mother who raised me up. So my mother was always supportive of me. She always tried that I can do whatever I want, basically. I always could do what I want, and then if I had this plan to do like making games, I just did it. She never tried to stop me from doing it. But also I didn't have the plan to become a game developer. It was just more like a natural thing that happened over time. Like this whole computer making video games thing it's hard to tell if it is an actual career opportunity. I'm kind of coming from the countryside, right? And nobody cares about that kind of stuff. People are more like they have real jobs. They are carpenters, for example, right? I think I would be something like that as well, because you still make something with your hands, and you get a result at the end, and you can look at it and you can touch it, and you made something. Something people can use, because I think there's a similarity between games, because you kind of make them for yourself because you have fun doing it, but at the end of the day, people are going to play it. It serves some sort of purpose, yeah. And that's like similar to making chairs, for example. So if I didn't make computer games, I would probably make chairs.
It's a rocking chair. And IKEA actually made, or took this as an inspiration and made a similar one. Of course. Okay, we're gonna go.
In 1881, a young couple moved into this house. They settled down. They made a beautiful house and home. The house was here. They had 3 children. None of the children got married. So when they were old, they decided that they wanted the home to stay like this as a memory of their parents. So they left the whole thing to a trust. Have you been to the Kalarsson?
Isn't this where we are?
This is not the Kalarsson.
It's not Kalarsson.
Oh, you're going to the Kalarsson?
Yes.
Is that where you want to go?
Yes.
This is the wrong house.
Indeed.
This was the home of Karin and Carl Larsson, the artist couple, and also their 7 children. So they had a big family living here. This property and the house is still owned by the relatives of Karin and Carl. Carl's motto in life: the most important thing in life is to work hard for things and also take care of the family and spend time with the family.
They could live on his art. Yeah. He earned a lot of money from the paintings he did in big paintings that he did in the opera in Stockholm and also the theater. But the paintings he is famous for today from this house, he didn't earn a lot of the money on those. He wanted to show the real life, not that everything was perfect all the time, which it wasn't.
This drawing, it's a print of a woodwork. It's called The Artist's Melancholia, and it's by Albrecht Dürer. I wasn't sure, I just had to check. I really wonder why it's here. I wonder if it's part of the original collection of the owner. But yeah, it's a very detailed print, so yeah, that's really interesting if it was.
Now we're in the reading room, or the library, as you can see on all the books in here. And Carl, he bought about 7,000 books. This is quite much. And the whole family sat here and read out loud to each other. A lot of people have noticed the Japanese art. And Carl and Carl, they were both very inspired by Japanese art. But he never visited Japan. Carl, he found this cottage in another village outside of Falun. And he found out that they were gonna tear it down and destroy it. So he bought it and took it here and built it to the house as an extra room. It was the rich men that earned money from the mine, in the copper mine in Falun. They built these cottages for their children.
I'm Nora and I help kids paint. Some days I work here in, as it's called, Skaparverkstan, and here I help kids paint. And I also work in the house as a guide. I think arts are helpful or important for people because it's an impression and it shows something, and you can feel something when you look at it and can feel what the painter was feeling when he painted it.
Do you think video games could be art?
Yes, of course.
Let me get it more from the beginning.
Eat the paper. Eat the paper.
Eat the paper.
Yeah, you can eat the paper here.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's sweet.
Thanks, you didn't have
to. Man, you are a bird.
I suppose there's a story about why he chose to live in the woods, and like in some sense isolating himself while creating, and that's not entirely unlike when we go to Stugan. Even though we're along our peers, we're among people with that does the same thing. It's kind of isolated.
I'm Sebastian. I work for Coffee Stain Publishing, and I work mainly with our VR stuff. We are responsible for creating games such as Sanctum and Sanctum 2, and then Goat Simulator, which became a massive kind of hit. I'm actually here visiting the team we signed on, which is Coastal Byte. We're sponsoring their time here in Stugan, and they're making a game called Puppet Fever. We fell in love with the concept.
Puppet Fever is a social VR game. A VR game that you play with your friends and family in the living room, where you try to act out, sort of like charades with your puppet theater.
You have one player inside of VR trying to communicate with the players outside of VR.
But he turned into a mask.
Playing together is fun. I think especially when you're in the same room, like on a console or something.
Or like board games.
Yeah, like board games.
Here at Stugan, we've been playing a lot of board games with other people.
I love playing games. I love playing both video games, but I also love playing board games. And one of the coolest things about Stugan for me is that there is always somebody who wants to play some games in the evening.
We actually have a Dungeons and Dragons team, what do you call it, here at Stugan. And we're playing like a modified version, so where we replaced all the popular races like the elves with birds. I'm playing a duck druid.
The adventurers decide to plunge deeper into the ancient temple structure. Marlowe's chambers must be getting closer. They feel confident after defeating the chess queen and go boldly through the door behind the smashed chess pieces. Merc manages to quietly slide the door open and take a peek, and eventually sneak inside together with War. The magpies find a great evil-looking statue in the room, along a bunch of grim mercenary ducks.
My plan is that we use the masks to disguise as the guards that we kill. Yeah, exactly. And the brilliance of this plan is that we approach Marlowe like this, and the one who is equipped with a burnt armor is like wounded, and then we trick Marlowe into thinking that
Seconds is a game where you only play 1 second at a time each day. So you play like you check your phone, you have a countdown, and if the time runs out, you have a button, and if you press the button, then you win a point. You have to wait till the next day to be able to press the button again. And you have this high score, so you have to compete with your friends. How many days in a row you can press the button in the right time. But it's always random, so you have to check your phone constantly. And also, like when the button appears, you only have 1 second to press the button.
It's a great concept. It's a great concept.
It's a great concept.
It's going viral already. It's three installs.
3 downloads. A really good review. René and myself made the game. I mean, I think like in total it's like 2 hours of development or something like that. You're gonna be able to watch an ad, and you're gonna get filled with like lives. So you can press the button multiple times in a row if you watch an ad or you share on social media.
If you want, you can wait for 22 hours to get the real footage of the game. To see the button.
At times
to see the button, we have to wait 22 hours. So make a time lapse of me holding.
Yeah, it's available on the Android Play Store. It's probably gonna be available for iOS soon. The main goal of Seconds actually for me is just to publish something in the store. So when I release my game, I already know all the things I have to do. It's like an exercise, it's like a sandbox of testing things.
That's how we play it.
Yeah, 1 second.
This is it. And this is me done.
My name's Alex Tutty. I'm a lawyer. I work at a media law firm in London called Sheridan's, and I specialise in computer games, mainly working for independent developers. And I was asked to come out here and give some advice on how independent developers could work with publishers and other developers. Some of the bigger clients we work with are Mojang, who made Minecraft, Playdead, who made Inside, and Limbo, the Chinese Room, who made Dear Esther, and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Introversion, who made Prison Architects, but we work with everyone from 1 or 2 developers making a really small indie game all the way up to a bigger developer like Supermassive making Until Dawn. Day to day I spend most of my time talking to developers, amending the agreements, typically publishing agreements, so they'll have those with Sony or Microsoft, and just making sure that they've got all their all the legal sort of bits and bobs in place. Okay, so I came to Stugan just to talk about 3 basic elements. One was intellectual property and how that exists in games and how they can use that, and the second one was dealing with publishers, what they should expect for in a publisher agreement, an agreement where somebody's paying them to either make the game or the publisher takes the game and they distribute it or publish it. And the third one was royalty share arrangements. Initiatives like Stugan are like an incredible idea. I tend to find with a lot of my clients they're just kind of working on something in isolation or with 1 or 2 other people, and so having the ability to bring like 25 of them all together and talk about what they're doing and really to feed off each other and bring in mentors to talk about how they've designed a really popular game is really incredible.
My name's Ed Valiente and I work for Nintendo Europe. When you nearly failed university because you spent 8 hours a day playing Mario Kart, it kind of seems perfect that I ended up there all those years later. And I've got a 12-year-old son and he is a massive Nintendo fan, so every day I wake up and I'm going to work for him, and that gives me a lot of pleasure. I go out there, I try and find games, I try and encourage people to come to Nintendo, I answer questions and generally just try and enjoy the dev scene. That's the reason I'm still doing it after 20 years. It's a really tough business to be in at the moment. There are hundreds of games being released all the time, and I think what is really important about this is it gives people the confidence to actually finish a project as well and get the opportunity to learn how they can actually go out there and say, hey guys, this is my game, give me some money.
It all boils down eventually to discovery of your game. What kind of tricks and methods you use to actually make your game visible, for example, on the App Store, so that people can actually find it.
A lot of luck involved as well. I think it's a factor you never, you need that as well. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that was super talented, they were doing the right things, but they just never had that right timing, which is needed.
We had a game called Gunshine and it actually failed. And we were running out of money, so we were like back against the wall. Then when Clash of Clans became available, like then maybe a couple of months after that, we noticed that, whoa, now we are onto something here. Making mistakes is really important. Be bold, do something that somebody hasn't done before. Don't be afraid of doing mistakes, because always when you do mistakes you can learn something from them.
They want Stugan to be creative and they want people to be creatively successful. But when they mentor us, they also teach us how to market our games, how to sell our games, how to organize ourselves so we can keep being creative for a long time.
So people around the world play games like Minecraft, Battlefield, Candy Crush and many others, but they maybe don't know that these are all Swedish games. And so part of the reason for the success of the Swedish games industry is that we have a very tiny home market of 10 million people. We had to look to the world and stop making games for the Swedish home audience and instead trying to reach out to the global player community. Sweden is great about teamwork. We're not a very individualistic culture, we're more of a collectivist culture. This goes through our education system, our workplace, even our personal lives. We're brought up not to think so much about ourselves, but about the people around us. And if you think about creativity in games, it's very much a team effort in many cases. So it's almost like the Swedish culture was built to make games.
You don't find this kind of pragmatism, this willingness to combine commerce and art in other countries, I think. And that's why Sweden is just ahead of the pack.
I guess the question is, can art still be made for profit? Can you still be an artist while still saying with a straight face that you want to make money?
I think a lot of the creative people here, they have the soul of the artist. And a lot of that has to do with like, you have that search for like a kind of authenticity. And it's hard work to sort of find that.
It's always fun working on something that's arty. Mainly all the projects I've worked in my life were this kind of projects, you know. It's art first and then commercial success second.
It is ultimately like a product that you kind of have to put out there for others as well. So it's like trying to reconcile that, you know, making something authentic, but also like something that would make sense in like for the commercial market.
An indie, in many people's minds, actually is the struggling artist that is supposed to be tough, you know. And I don't believe this. I don't believe that there's counterpositions in between those things. I believe people should be able to take care of their family, I'm talking about financially, etc., while still following their dreams and making their games.
I just did it just for me, for myself, and just because I want to make a game, then I put it online and that's it. I never made any money. So, and this is like the first time I'm working on a real game. I want to kind of try to make money from it and sell it, so it's a bit different now.
You have to pay your bills, you know, and if you can do it with your art, it's good. Maybe it's the good rule is just not get too greedy and then abandon all of your principles and abandon what makes you happy when you're making the game. Or why not do both? Yes! Earn $1 million and then make another arty game on your yacht. Yes, yeah, that's the plan.
Games are by now a billion-dollar business, and there's place for everyone, but there's also individual stories and success stories. There's some rock stars of video games as well, so you can get really rich if you're lucky.
Our money, you know, company's money is coming from hawkers mostly. It's very popular on Android and iOS. Do you remember the downloads or sales?
It's over 8 million downloads.
Yeah.
On iOS and Android.
Total.
Yeah.
I was really surprised because the sales number is very high. Yeah, and my bosses see the situation and they ask me, are you sure for working here, or do you mind to work alone again? I did it finally, you know.
After a long struggle, finding financial success is important, and it just makes it so much simpler to continue living your dream.
Working with my wife is sometimes hard, sometimes good, but at the end of the day, we are always happy.
You have, with money, you get a lot of power to do great things, and Stugan it's definitely one of those really extremely inspiring projects for me.
Being able to come somewhere and spend 2 months solid working on something that's your own is a really rare opportunity. I think the point of it is that the people who run it are also really philanthropic, and they're really invested in helping develop talent in the games industry. It's just like encouraging any other art form in the birth of its process, like encouraging all of the smaller games and the weird games, like not just like, oh, this is going to be like a AAA hit or anything. It's important.
Trying to understand what Stugan meant to me in my life, I think was hard to appreciate at the time, because at the time, you know, you're head down, you've got this 2-month window to work on your game, and I think for a lot of indies this is like, you know, a life-changing equation, because often you're scrapping and you don't have access to that kind of just time to focus on the thing that you're trying to do.
Stugan is not just about the games, it's more about their personal journeys, you could say. Many people come to me after Stugan and they say they've really developed as human beings and they got to know themselves.
Now that I'm back here 2 years later, it's kind of this feeling that my soul can breathe.
I think something I found is as I've got older, it becomes difficult to make kind of long-lasting friends. Like that happens all the time when you're young, when you're at school. But suddenly when you're thrown into this sort of environment where there's lots of people who all love sort of similar things to you, you actually make really, really good friends, which is it's been a long time since I think that's happened for me.
I mean, I'm definitely going to go to Bosnia and visit Amman, Ivan at some point.
Like if you've been a nerd in school and like, you know, you're kind of the kid who's into this thing and other people aren't really. So suddenly you come to Stugan and you have all of these people around you and they're like you. And I think it's for some people it's like this amazing revelation of like, my God, these other people, they're like me. And you kind of feel like you found your tribe.
I think the thing I remember the most is the people around here. So we are a lot of people here from all around the world, right? But we also have a lot of things in common. It's like, yeah, it's really hard to define what it is. But I think it's just, I'm probably gonna miss those people here, yeah.
Are you filming René? Yeah. I came in to tickle him.
Oh no, please stop.
Because he doesn't want to stay with us. Yeah.
What? No, stop it.
Accommodation.
So now I'm scared.
And they sent me.
What? Who sent you?
To tickle you, man.
Shit. I got a punch. Okay, good. Oh my God. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry I broke your microphone.
Ah, it's not mine, it's fine,
filming.
I guess.
Yeah. You said it's okay, man. That was okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's just a thing that started at some point, starting tickling me, and I don't really know why. How did you start doing that?
Because it's so cute, man.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, you're so cute when they tickle you. You get all faster, red,
But at some point it starts to hurt.
Yeah?
Yeah, it does, like psychologically. Yeah. So yeah, the question was if I feel uncomfortable talking in front of the group, right?
Part of Stugan is going out on these various kind of day trips, and we went to a copper mine which supplied 75% of the world's copper.
När jag är full och så är jag glad. När jag är glad är jag vacker. Jag går omkring i vår lilla stad. Är bland hus och baracker. Och alla träden välter jag omkull. Och det gör jag bara när jag är full.
that's a fact. It's a thing we can't deny, like the fact that I will love you till I die. We are 12 billion light years from the edge. That's a guess. No one can ever say it's true, but I know that I will always be with you. I'm warmed by the fire of your love every day. So don't call me a liar, just believe everything that I say. There are 6 billion people in the world, more or less, and it makes me feel quite small, but you're the one I love the most of all.
So we're in Stockholm now, and it's the final show of Stugan. So we've been working for 2 months on our games, and it's like the finale right now. Yeah, and it's all like crazy exciting. Everyone's got their games together, like some of us at the very last minute. So it's great to kind of show it in front of some people now. I think today I just want to know that people really like the mechanic, they like the atmosphere, the setting resonates for people, and as long as all those things fall in line, then I'm confident that I can take the game forward. Yeah, I'm going to pop up. I'll see you up there.
And then walk away.
Do you know how to get in? I don't know how to get in.
What is it like when you have to show a game off?
I think it's nerve-wracking sometimes. I don't know.
How do you feel today, Karina?
I feel okay, I think. Thank you, Robin.
No problem.
Thanks, Robin.
Do I need to answer the question some more?
Yeah, that'd be awesome if you don't mind.
I'm feeling pretty good. I really, I feel like cool. This is a cool space. I have a cool game. And it's gonna be a good 2 hours, even though I'm also kind of nervous. Cables. Okay.
What do you think people's first impressions are going to be of Mississippi?
I think that some people probably aren't going to like it very much, but that's okay. I understand. But hopefully, you know, some people, even if they're initially put off, want to keep playing and get into it, and I don't know, find it to be a little bit of a different experience than some of the other games here. That's my hope.
Thanks.
So here we're in the center of Stockholm, something called Epicenter, which is a startup hub. A lot of tech companies work here. I have our company as well in this premises, and they're now just gonna show, the doors will open in about 15 minutes from now, and then people are gonna start coming in, bring their families and play. A lot of people from the industry, but it's open for everyone. It's open house. So yeah, I'm finally gonna see the progress that's been made during these 2 months.
At the final event, mixed feelings, but it's good. Tired. Happy. All these emotions going through my head.
I think that after Stugan like this, people go through a phase where we almost say it's like a post-Stugan syndrome, where you made friends for life, and then you're gonna leave them.
Now it's over. I feel that it was like a huge and incredible experience for me as person, for the game, for our team, and of course I'm feeling super sad about this ending because I met a lot of super cool people, which I don't know if I'm going to see again because most of them are in Europe, but then one of the people I'm more close to is the Brazilians, and they are going to be in Brazil, which is super far away, so I'm super sad, but I'm going to not show it.
Yes, we can always say Stugan years forever. Stugan years.
I can't believe this is over. After 7 weeks, we're here again for the third time in a row, like the Stugan finale, and people are just wrapping their games after showing it to people. Everybody seems to be very happy, so I'm very pleased. Goodbye.
Games!
I'm so excited. I just can't hide it.
Yo, 1 2 1 2 check 1 2. There you go. At my end, there's a bit of an issue with my sound, but I'll try and pop my... Where's my camera? Let's pop my face back on. There you go. That's the unfinished indie dev documentary. Obviously, this track will play if we get the music license for it. If not, a different track will play. 9 million bicycles in Beijing, music license issues. The music from the heart of Falun, composed by Sweden's own Hugo Alphen. I'd love to be able to use that. And the music of Mads is one of the Stuganeers, Mads' music. I'd love to be able to use all that music and get the music licenses. I'd love to be able to finish this last chuffing piece with everyone's name and everyone's face and all their games as well. There's a few little bits of polish there, aren't there, that you've seen? A few bits of polish that could be improved. Maybe it needs tightening up in a few places here and there. Maybe it needs polishing up in a few different bits. But that's as far as I drove it before I felt that, you know what they talk about in the film? They were talking about that crunch, weren't they? Talking about that crunch where, like, mental health and all that. I just put so much work into this and got it this far. So there you go. Hopefully if we watch it a few times on stream, maybe I'll put it in a schedule. Maybe I'll schedule it. So once every now and then, once a month or so, maybe more, we watch it. Or it goes on regular schedule on stream. And I don't know, maybe we do some sort of crowdfund so I can get that last bit of editing polish finished. Get something out of it. I'd love to be able to sell it to a network. I'd love to be able to put it on a network if anyone, knows anything about that. But otherwise, I think it's just about time that I let it out there in the world. And it's not the final finished polished version. That wasn't the 1080p thing. It's got the word draft all the way. It could be tightened. It could be, whatever. So I think that's fair enough, isn't it? To say, put that out there. If someone wants to buy it for a network, they don't have to worry about they don't have to worry about if it's been on Twitch. No, can't buy it now. It's not even finished properly, look. So this is the draft. This is the beta test. And that's the film. So, yeah, you be good, my little podcast.